Welcome back. Now that we have a general sense of what Thomas Nagel is talking about, let's look at his argument in detail. An argument is not a fight or a disagreement. An argument, as we'll use the term, is a set of reasons that support a conclusion. Remember, reasons are the kinds of considerations that someone who doesn't already agree with you can recognize as reasons. Sometimes, just one reason on its own can be an argument, but more often, we need a series of reasons that taken together support a conclusion. Sometimes those reasons give evidence for the conclusion. If I follow the trail of cookie crumbs from the cookie jar in the kitchen, up the stairs and into my son's bedroom, then I have reasons, that is, evidence, for the conclusion that he took a cookie from the cookie jar. Evidence of this sort typically supports a conclusion by showing that it's more likely than its competitors. But other lines of reasoning do more than merely make a conclusion likely. They guarantee its truth. Nagel offers this kind of argument, which we can call a deductive argument. On page 437, he writes the following about conscious experience. If physicalism is to be defended, the phenomenological features must themselves be given a physical account. But when we examine their subjective character, it seems that such a result is impossible. The reason is that every subjective phenomenon is essentially connected with a single point of view, and it seems inevitable that an objective physical theory will abandon that point of view. These three sentences contain 4 claims, so let's number them. If physicalism is to be defended, the phenomenological features must themselves be given a physical account. When we examine their subjective character, it seems that such a result is impossible. Every subjective phenomenon is essentially connected with a single point of view, and it seems inevitable that an objective physical theory will abandon that point of view. Here, the conclusion that Nagel wants to draw is captured by claim 4. Once we cut through his rhetorical language, what 4 says is that it's impossible to give a physical explanation, that is, a scientific theory, of the subjective character of conscious experience, which he also calls the phenomenological features of consciousness. Why should we believe that conclusion? Nagel tells us the reason in the last sentence of the passage, which contains 2 claims that are supposed to support the conclusion. These are premises of the argument. Every subjective phenomenon is essentially connected with a single point of view, and an objective physical theory will abandon that point of view. Nagel thinks that together, these 2 premises create a tension. Conscious experience has a feature, which he calls its subjective character, that is necessarily missed by any physical, that is, scientific explanation. This seems to imply that it's impossible to have a scientific explanation of conscious experience, and that's the first conclusion. Why should we care about that conclusion? The reason is given by claim 1. It says that a physical theory of consciousness must give a physical account of subjective experience. More generally, it claims that any correct scientific theory of consciousness must explain its phenomenological features, that is, its subjective character. From this, Nagel arrives at the conclusion, not explicitly stated in the passage, that there cannot be a physical or scientific theory of consciousness. Or, when he's being more cautious, that either physicalism is false or we don't understand how it could be true. Either way, consciousness remains a mystery to us. And for that reason, Nagel's view is sometimes called New Mysterianism. Now we can see the full shape of Nagel's argument. How do we evaluate this argument? Here we need to introduce some vocabulary for discussing arguments. Understanding and using this vocabulary might be the most important part of the class, so here we go. An argument is a set of sentences or claims called premises that support another claim called a conclusion. Each of these sentences is a statement that can be true or false, like snow is white. Questions, instructions, and insults are not premises. Only statements can be premises. We can evaluate each premise as being either true or false, as well as the conclusion. But the whole argument taken together is not the kind of thing that can be true or false. An argument is not a sentence or a statement. It's a set of those things. The categories for evaluating arguments are not truth and falsity, but validity and soundness. A valid deductive argument is one where the conclusion must be true if the premises are true. Or, put another way, if an argument's valid, then it's impossible for the premises to be true and the conclusion false. Notice that the validity of an argument has to do with how the premises are related to the conclusion, but it doesn't tell us whether the premises are in fact true. For example, consider the following argument. If the moon is made of green cheese, then it's made of cheese. The moon is made of green cheese. Therefore, the moon is made of cheese. This cheesy moon argument is valid. The conclusion would be true if the premises were true. Equivalently, it's not possible for the premises to be true and the conclusion to be false. Of course, the premises of the cheesy moon argument are not all true. In particular, premise 2 is false. The moon is not made of green cheese. The argument is valid, but it's not sound. A sound argument is a valid argument with true premises. Both parts are required. An argument can't be sound without being valid. The cheesy moon argument is valid, but it has at least one false premise, so it's not sound. The same is true of this alternative cheesy moon argument. If the moon is made of cheese, then people have walked on the moon. The moon is made of cheese. Therefore, people have walked on the moon. This cheesy argument might be valid, and it even has a true conclusion. People have indeed landed on the moon. But the argument is still not sound because it contains at least one false premise. The moon is still not made of cheese. Okay then, back to Nagel's argument. Is it valid? Is it sound? What do you think? In the next lesson, we'll continue to discuss this argument with special attention to his reasons for thinking that each premise is true. To shed some light on the claim that an objective scientific theory will inevitably leave out points of view, I want you to read from Kathleen Aiken's paper, What Is It Like to Be Boring and Myopic? Sections 1 through 4. Be sure to be a smart reader. The various sections are not all equally important. So which ones do you think are most relevant?